Hi everybody, Mario Francisco Robles MFR here with you with my official review for Power Rangers, the 2017 reboot, remake, whatever you want to call it, of the essentially the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers TV series. So, first things first, I should say that I was a fan of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers back in the day. I saw the original film back whenever that came out in 1995, I want to say. And I remember I even had like the soundtrack on audio cassette. That's how old I am. I had it in my Walkman. I used to listen to the soundtrack all the time. And the uh-oh, we're in trouble. Anyway, so I do have a fondness for the property. And the reason I bring this up is because I do feel that this film will live or die based on your prior fandom, and take it however way you'd like to take it. That the film won't necessarily speak to you, I don't think, if you're not already a Power Rangers fan. But if you are, and especially of that era of the basically the first Power Ranger series to cross over here into North America, the Mighty Morphin era, I think this will be right up your alley. And little side note, I even watched a little bit into the Zeo era just to see what that was like. And I remember I got really excited when I heard that the Gold Ranger was popping up, and it was Jason, the former Red Ranger. So, so my fandom really is tied to that initial thing, because aside from the Gold Ranger popping up and me wanting to see what that was like for 2 episodes, I pretty much jumped off from there. So I'm just letting you know that, so you know where my fandom sort of began and ended. My fandom was really about the Mighty Morphin era. So alright, so let's talk about this movie that Dean Israelite made for us. So, first things first, I already said first things first about the fandom note, so let's do second things first. Second things first, the film really wastes no time trying to get the team together. It's almost sort of funny how haphazard the first 15 minutes or so as they try to like really race to the good part. Race to where the team, now they all know each other, and now they begin the business of becoming a team. And that could be a little jarring at first, because literally all we're learning in those first few minutes is we're seeing one sort of very rough sketch of these character types after another, and they all really come together super quickly. They get their power coins really quickly, and at first I'm thinking like, geez, is everything gonna be this sort of like just slapped together? But thankfully, once we get through that very rushed period where we learn all the dynamics and how everyone interacts with each other and what they bring to the table as a character, from that point on they do a fairly solid job of building the team, of getting us invested in what they're like, and then basically working backwards. Now we've got the team, now let's get to know each of them beyond just that little rough sketch. So I did want to say that right off the bat, the movie does kind of seem to be sprinting, but then it takes its time building up the team, and for me that's really one of the strengths of the film. I really enjoyed the team dynamic. I like all the actors. I don't really know any of them. I know Becky G's had a couple of hit songs. I don't really know her as an actress. So for me, these were all basically new characters, new people that I'm totally unfamiliar with. And they won me over. At first, Becky G's Trini, as she calls, I'm used to saying Trini, but in this movie they call her Trini. Her Trini is probably the hardest nut to crack, because for a lot of it she is kind of like surly, stereotypical teenage character 101 who's like, I'm so jaded. Look how jaded I am, and everything I say is sarcastic and snarky, and I want to be alone. So, she's the one who takes the longest for us to get to know her and get invested in her. But I would say that once we do, she's a good member of the team. For me, I keep saying right off the bat as if we're just getting started. We're already 5 minutes into this, Mario. Shut up. The biggest issue I had, which I do tend to try to tackle early in reviews, was Rita Repulsa. I thought Elizabeth Banks was a little bit, shall we say, in her own movie. This is something that I've brought up a few times recently, actually. When I've reviewed Rogue One, I said that Saw Gerrera seemed very much like he was in his own movie. Just way more over the top than everyone else, and the tone of what he was doing sort of clashed with the tone of what 95% of the rest of the film was about. I brought up in Logan that character, I think her name is Maria, the one who's the caretaker for Laura. She was, especially right in her introductory scene, so overbearingly over the top and melodramatic that to me it like pulled me out of the movie. Thankfully, there wasn't any of that in Kong Skull Island, if you saw my review for that one. But in terms of this, Rita Repulsa, Elizabeth Banks, really seems to be just in a different movie, and it's not good. The clash is pretty bad. She's extremely over the top, extremely cartoonish, and the villain has no real... The overall villain plot in that arc lacks any real sense of drama or intrigue. And that's unfortunate because in the lead up to this film, as I was covering it for the various sites I write for, it was interesting to see the extra levels they were adding to Rita Repulsa and to Zordon. The whole idea of she's a former Green Ranger. The whole idea that he's a former Red Ranger. The idea that, millions of years ago they had a clash where she ended up killing the original team, and Zordon as the Red Ranger had to save them all, or at least try to save the world from her because she lost her mind or whatever the thing is. We never really dive into that history though. It's very sort of minutely touched upon, and we never really, there's never any payoff for the fact that Rita and Zordon even know each other. Without getting into spoilers, I will just say something that doesn't happen. There's never a confrontation between Rita and Zordon post what happened millions of years ago. I think something like that would have really added to the storytelling. Had she somehow gotten into the command center at some point and saw Zordon trapped in this wall, and the two of them had this, some sort of confrontation to really sort of bring out that extra dimension, that extra level of animosity and history between them, it might have grounded the villain's plot a little more. As it stands, all we really know is at some point during the Cenozoic era, during that version of the Power Rangers was taking place where Zordon was the Red Ranger. All we really know is that she lost her mind at some point, killed at least one of the Rangers. I know she flat out says she kills the Yellow Ranger at one point. I don't know if she killed all of them or whatnot, but they never really venture into any of that. And what we're left with is this insanely over the top, cackling and cartoony Rita Repulsa. And it's like, ugh, every time she's on screen, it's like, when did this become a children's cartoon? When did we just revert to making her the Wicked Witch of the West? Because the other people in the movie, it's all very naturalistic. The acting is very human. It's very... the way it's shot almost feels documentary style. There's a lot of handheld camera, a lot of intimate camera angles. It's meant to almost feel like Chronicle, how Chronicle almost had that sort of documentary feel, almost like a found footage feel. Power Rangers has a fair amount of that, where they want you to feel connected on a very human level with these characters. It's supposed to feel like real life, and Rita is just so ridiculously big that every time she's on screen, it's more or less cringeworthy. And while at first I thought, all right, this is pretty cool that they don't really show her that much, and that we mainly hear about her in the periphery as the team is training and as the team is coming together. I guess I appreciate that because I didn't really want to see more of her. But then it's a double-edged sword, because then when the final confrontation happens, and now it's finally time for the team to face off against Rita and Goldar, there's really no bite to it. It really, you just kind of like, I don't want to see this character anymore. And this whole villain plot is so paper thin that, you know, it's a shame that this is what all of that team building led to. Because the team building really is the best part. The best part of the movie are these characters, how they interact with each other, how they touch on certain hot button issues that are happening in our country and in our world today. You know, it's you know, you have a Blue Ranger, Billy Cranston, who we find out, I didn't know this from the trailers, he's on the spectrum. He's on the autism spectrum. And the way he's handled in the film is handled, it's really nicely. Just kind of having a member of the team who, yes, they're on the spectrum, but they're not treated in any sort of way that's demeaning to them. They're treated with dignity. They're treated with respect. And they're actually, like Billy's one of the highlights of the movie. He gets a lot of the big laugh lines, and the actor who played him does a really nice job with him. So, you know, so you have a character who's on the spectrum. You have a character who's either at least homosexual, possibly bisexual. You've probably read about that by now, but that would be Trini, the Yellow Ranger. You have a character who's dealing with, well, you know, the aftermath of what it's like to shame someone online. You know, we live in this era where it's okay, it's seemingly acceptable to be intolerably cruel online. And basically, you know, being able to anonymously try to ruin someone's lives. And we have a character in who's a part of the team who deals with something like that and realizes, you know, how unbelievably sort of evil it can be nowadays to anonymously be a dick to someone. Yeah, so it tackles all these little interesting social issues and ideas of acceptance and ideas of embracing our destiny, not being brought down by mistakes that we've made. Yeah, there's a lot of great human themes in this film, and I really enjoyed that. I will say that, you know, there are also these moments that totally sort of jump the shark. There's a moment there that also just made me want to bury my face in my hands in the theater, which is, and I'm just trying to get the bad stuff out of the way here, which is during one of the first big money shots of the Power Rangers in their Zords heading to battle, you hear the Go-Go Power Rangers theme song. And while it would have been epic and goosebump-inducing to hear that perhaps done orchestrally, you actually hear, like, it sounds like the TV show. You hear, like, the singers with all the backup singers going, "Go, go, Power Rangers!" Da, 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 da. And I'm like, did they really just do that? I was sitting in the theater like, did they really just do that? You know, so there are these moments like that stop the film from being truly great. Like, you're just like, you know, you had a good thing going here, and then you had to go and make it kind of stupid. So there's moments like that. There's moments, like I said, where the villain plot is so paper thin and Rita is so just not a great villain and acted so terribly. No offense, Elizabeth Banks. I know you're a great actress, but I guess you were trying to channel, you know, what Rita was on the TV show. And unfortunately, the rest of the movie seemed to be doing a very good job of surpassing the TV show and making it more grounded in something relatable and likable and real. And you were trying to be, you know, Rangers! And it's just, oof. Now, on the positive side also, there's the fact that Dean Israelite seems to have a knack for visual storytelling. Something I brought up on yesterday's El Fanboy podcast is the idea that Iron Fist is told so visually flat that there's no real character to the visuals, that it's shot just like any old TV show, and for a film with that sort of, for a TV series with that sort of lore and for the story they're trying to tell, someone with more of an artistic vision would have been good. And Israelite has an artistic vision. You could see right off the bat in one of the first sequences where there's a big car accident, he shoots it from inside the car instead of the traditional outside sort of thing. So it really kind of puts you in the car, and visually it's very striking. And there's a lot of that in the film where the camera seems to be right on people and dealing with things from unique angles. And unlike the craze from, let's say, 15 years ago when the Bourne Identity movies came out and suddenly everyone wanted to do shaky cam and everyone wanted that handheld cam look, thankfully, this never has that effect where it disorients you, where you don't know who's kicking who, you don't know who's falling where, you don't know if you're looking at a good guy get hurt or a bad guy get hurt. There's none of that disorientation in this. It's shot with, basically that same sort of shaky cam, handheld cam aesthetic, but somehow Israelite seems to have perfected it so that, yes, you're in there and it feels very intense and very raw, but you always know what's going on. So kudos to him for that. And kudos to him and his writing team for putting together a nice team of Rangers. I really, really like Jason in this. He has a moment early on where he displays a true selfless act of heroism, and anyone who's watched my reviews and my rants about things like Man of Steel and Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, I'm a big sucker for heroism, seeing true heroism on stage, seeing someone on screen, where you see someone who has great abilities or even doesn't have great abilities, is just innately a good person, selflessly helping someone in need. To me, that really speaks to me. And in one of the first scenes where we're getting to see Jason's character develop, he does something that I was just like, yeah, good, this is awesome. I don't really want to spoil it, but he has a scene there, it's how him and Billy meet, that makes you really go, you know what, this Jason character is really someone special. And you understand why he would go on to become the leader of the team. And it doesn't feel ham-fisted. The actor, I don't know how to pronounce his name. It's a unique, like Dacry, I don't know, something like that. Montgomery, I believe. He does a really nice job of making this character, who could be very one-dimensional, feel very multi-dimensional and relatable and sympathetic. So, and I would say that about just about everybody. Aside from Becky G, who it takes a long time for us to finally root for her, I would say everyone really brought their A game in this movie, aside from Rita Repulsa. And trying to think of anything else. I know I crapped on the Zord moment, but in terms of the other money shots, the other iconic moments in the film, like when we see them in their costumes for the first time, when they morph for the first time, when they have their first arrival and they're about to fight the putties for the first time. All those little sacred moments are handled really, really well. And that's why, to me, if you're already a Power Rangers fan, this is going to be great for you, because Mr. Israelite seems like he's a fan right alongside us. So all those really iconic moments, including the moment where the Megazord first appears, which isn't a spoiler because that's in the trailers, all those moments are handled wonderfully. They're handled with all the majesty and all the epicness they deserve. And, there were several times in the theaters yesterday where, just based on the imagery, just based on finally getting to see on the big screen what these things now look like, these moments in the Power Ranger lore look like, people cheered in the middle of the movie. At just the visuals, at just oh my God, they're morphing, oh my God, here come the Zords and it's time. You hear cheering, and it was great. It was really a thrill to be in a mixed screening, because yes, me and my fellow press people were there, but there were also a lot of people who were general public, who I guess they won tickets or they applied online and they were in there. So to hear it and watch the film with fans was great, because you got to hear the stuff they responded to. And for me, who I approach these things as a fan first also, it was just it was exhilarating. It was absolutely exhilarating. And there's also a fair amount of genuine emotion there. And this is a credit to the actors and the chemistry, that there's a couple of surprises within the film, within the narrative, where I can't speak for you, but I know for me, I found them surprisingly touching, surprisingly emotionally resonant. And I even, at one point, there's something that happens in the movie, and it looks like someone brought a small child. I don't know how old they were, but I heard them crying in the distance during this really sad part of the movie. And it was like, wow, the filmmakers here really did their job. You know, they really got us into these characters, and they created a surprising and sort of heartbreaking scenario that people didn't see coming, and it landed. And that's the thing. A lot of this movie lands. But where it all comes apart are in a few key areas. And, you know, like I mentioned already, the villain. And unfortunately, the final battle, since it is against a villain that's just sort of hokey, and it's a villain plot that overall isn't that interesting, I would have to say that, like, the last 25 minutes of the movie is probably the least interesting part, because that's when it just becomes a bunch of CGI and a bunch of things beating each other up, and it loses, you know, what made it interesting, which was the very human, very beating heart of the film. So that's why the official score for Power Rangers is B-. I'm going to give it a B-, because I definitely enjoyed it. It was not a bad movie, and it had some moments that really made it transcend what it could have been. But overall, you know, it's just, you know, it's brought down heavily by the fact that a superhero movie, you know, something like this, it really needs a great villain, and it needs a great villain plot to really be, you know, as good as it can be. And because of that, and because of a few unfortunate moments where you're just like, really, this is what we're doing, I'm gonna leave this as a B-. So, and my final sort of wrap up here is, if you are a Power Rangers fan, if especially of the Mighty Morphin era, that whole thing with, you know, that with the T-Rex and the Mastodon and all that sort of stuff, this will be right up your alley. If you're not a Power Rangers fan, I would say you can take a pass on this one. And that's about it. Go Power Rangers.